This is how I repaired a bar stool with bent lamination where the back was broken off completely. First I have to make a jig to bend the gusset. The gusset is made of bent lamination and it'll take up the space that I just removed from this block. Here's the gusset that I'm going to have to replace. I'm just test fitting it into the jig. After I test fit it, I'm going to put cellophane boxing tape to protect the jig from the glue. Next is a dry fit to see that it's going to bend in the shape that I want. I cut 8 1/8-inch oak strips. Next comes the glue up. I'll spread the strips out and put glue on one side, making sure that the glue is plenty thick enough to cover both sides as I put them together. The glue is Titebond 3. Gives me a little more open time. I did this on a scrap piece of melamine in order to make the glue clean up a bit easier. You can see here the box tape that I put on the jig. This is the broken piece that I am reforming so I can replace it. I'm going to tap out the pieces that were broken off into the chair, and as far as I can tell, there was no glue used on them. They had a wedge that was made out of plastic coming up from the bottom with a screw that went in on the diagonal that held them in. After the glue has dried for 24 hours, I pulled off the clamps and took the piece out. push sticks needed here. As long as you hold on and don't let go, there's no chance of a kickback. Push sticks sometimes will release the material. Just don't put your fingers into the blade. And now I'm going to sand it down to the final thickness, sanding it on both sides. Now I'm going to mark out so I can cut the final length. I should have done this after I bullnosed the edges on the shaper, but it worked out okay. Here I'm going to bring it down to the final lines and flatten off the two ends so it sits flat on the stool. Then I have to put a round that goes onto the round post for the upside, and I'm going to bulldoze the ends also. Rounding over the long edges is sometimes kind of tricky. The shaper is going to want to pull it in as you enter the cutter, so you got to hold it tight and be really careful. If you don't have experience, you can sometimes ruin your piece or possibly even hurt yourself. This is a pneumatic drum sander, and I'm going to have to soften the pressure to get it to go around the corners, but this will take off a lot of your sharper corners. And later on I'm going to use a flap sander to smooth it out even further. Both these sanders I run on my lathe. The pneumatic drum sander I run at 500 RPMs, and the flap sander I run at about 1,000. taking the measurement for the holes from the sample piece that's still good. I'm using a compass to measure in from the end and marking it, and then I'm going to center it off and re-drill the holes into the new piece. I'm going to center punch the holes so the drill bit won't wander. I don't want them to come off center. And this is a countersink bit that will run the head of the screw down below the surface. This was a jig that I made to try and get the hole right in the center. It didn't work so well. I had to center the hole up by eye afterwards, but it's working out just fine. I drill a small hole first and then work up in sizes until I can hit the 5/8 that I need for the final dowel rod. The dowel rod, I custom turned it out of oak to make it strong. This was a 3/8 Harbor Freight drill bit that twisted out of the shank that I used in the impact screwdriver. This is the 5/8 drill bit that I'm going to use, and you'll notice that I decided I better mark it for a depth gauge, and then when I put the tape on, I found out that the drill bit was already pretty hot. Ouch! I had to turn some plugs on the lathe to plug the holes, bringing it down to 5/8 of an inch so I could put my dowel rods through there. I'm going to relieve the edge of the rod so that the glue will squeeze out properly. I mounted the gussets onto the chair to hold it back into the position I wanted so I could clamp it down. And then I ran a drill bit to line up the holes to make sure everything lined up properly, and then glued them. I let the chair back dry overnight, and then after finishing the gusset that I had to remake with clear lacquer, I went ahead and reassembled the chair. The sound you're hearing from the screwdriver is the impact screwdriver ratcheting. It's not the screw slipping on the driver head.